Doesn't feel like Friday.
I think every day this week has felt like a perpetual Monday for me.
Yeah, it has. This week's felt very long.
I think it's just, well, I think the rain, for one.
Mm-hmm.
But also just the days have gone by really slow.
Yeah.
Which is weird because typically with clients, it flies. But all week I've been like, oh,
What is happening?
okay.
I know. I've had a weird schedule this week.
Yeah.
Of like, I'll have one super early in the morning, and then I have like a 5-hour block, it feels like. Which, of course, I've used. Yeah, I have taken a nap.
Take them naps.
A solid nap ski. I put on that new show on Netflix, Making the Band.
Oh, isn't Liam Payne in it?
Yes, and they do a whole thing in the beginning of like, we started this
My
before we
heart.
knew we would lose this angel kind of situation.
Yeah.
But I put that on and I turned all my lights out and took a nap on that couch.
I love that.
Which, love that it's comfortable enough for me to nap on, because that
great
means
couch.
my clients feel nice and safe and comfy when they're sitting on it.
Oh, yeah.
But,
That's my week next week.
yeah,
Fun times.
it'll be good.
Well, welcome back to Couch Convos, where we peel back the curtain on all things mental health, being a therapist, owning a practice, and just honestly living in this day and age, because it can be kind of messy sometimes.
Yeah, of just being a human.
Yeah.
And
my
today,
goodness.
I feel like is more of just a human,
That it is.
I was going to say session,
Yep.
human episode.
It is a human session today.
Yeah, it is.
Well, it was one of those when it was one of those topics where I don't think about it because it's always present, which is interesting. It's like when I was in my undergraduate program for teaching,
Yep.
I took a class where it was teaching elementary school math to like obviously young ones, and they were like, okay, why is the number 4 4? And I had to like think through that, and like, why is 4 plus 2 6? And it was just like, what? It just is.
Someone decided.
Yeah. Right. So we're really going to be tapping into something that just kind of defines, I know for us, like our lives and a lot of our working world. And I think a lot of people could relate to. And that is the idea of highly sensitive people.
Highly sensitive people, which actually I was just telling you this earlier, but I will tell the peeps listening. I asked because I was thinking, okay, I'm pretty sure I'm a highly sensitive person. And so I just wanted to double check myself, of course, because you know me.
Yeah.
And so I asked my
I said, who did you ask?
my fiance, which is so fun to say. I'll
It's a
catch
hard
myself.
launch. Yeah,
It
there you
is.
go.
I'm like, I keep saying boyfriend. I'll be like, oh,
No.
just kidding. He's
been
not.
promoted.
Yeah, he's moved up in the rankings. But my fiance Kyle, I asked him this morning. I was like, "Am I a highly sensitive person?" And he took a moment. And he was like, "Yeah," and then explained it to me. But when was the first moment? And prefacing that with this. Today was not the first day that I was like, I'm a highly sensitive person. But when was the first moment that you like recognized that that's kind of what was going on?
I think in like a unserious note, when I was a kid, I remember when I was old enough to watch The Notebook, my mom and I watched it together.
Yeah.
But she sent me to bed before the ending. Because you know how the
I do know how the ending ends.
Well, and also like, so I actually rewatched The Notebook this week. I just had.
Why?
I think that just shows.
Yeah.
You know, that says a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I was actually thinking about it this week because I watched the ending of The Notebook as an adult, and I was just like, yep, I see why my mom sent me to bed because she was. I actually really appreciated this about her. She didn't even like make a big deal out of it. She didn't like make me feel bad, but she was like, oh, hey, that's it. Like she found a natural stopping point of the movie where like they got back together happily ever after.
I'm trying to think of like before the actual ending when that would be.
It was like Noah and Allie lived happily ever after.
Aw.
But then like she sent me to bed because and what I later learned was she genuinely thought like I would lose it watching the ending, which like yeah. So I think that was like the unserious way of me being like, oh, I think I feel things deeply.
Yeah.
But as in a on a serious note, I think I realized that I was a big feeler or a deeper feeler when I remembered that like a lot of my upbringing, I just remember this constant undertone of feeling like I was too much and not enough at the same time.
Yeah.
So that kind of dynamic.
Yeah.
What about you?
So I would say, and I didn't know in the moment, I can look back now knowing like, oh, that's definitely my defining factor moment is I think it was second grade. And my mom and I were on the way to school and we hit a deer on the way to school. And like, most people that's scary, scary as a second grader. It's like,
it's scary
what's
as an
happening?
adult.
Yeah, that too. As an adult, it's like, oh my gosh, how much is this going to cost? What's going on? Am I going to have to buy a new car? But as a kid, so I got there and like, of course I was a little rattled, but I spent like the next hour like stressing, not about like us or the car, but about the deer. I was like, is the deer okay? Did the deer die? And literally for an hour, I sat in class just like on the verge of tears. And then I threw up. I got so concerned that I made myself like throw up and then had to go home for the day. So I think that was like the defining moment where it's like, okay, I feel a little bit deeper than
nothing wrong with that.
Some people because I was so concerned about the deer's safety.
Yeah. Do you still have that like physical response to emotion
of like wanting to throw up?
Yeah.
I used to when I played sports.
Yeah.
Like competition would make me feel, I would get so like overwhelmed with that. But as far as like now, not really. I will like tear up. I still cry when I have deep emotion, but no, thankfully I don't vomit anymore.
Very glad to hear that. Also, just that makes me so sad, which I could totally see it. And it also makes me think of like all of the other kids who have been through similar experiences. So do you think, because obviously I think this idea of like the fact that first of all there's a name for it, it's like HSP, highly sensitive people. Yeah. Do you feel like because it's well known now, do you feel like it's more socially accepted, or do you think it's just like a trend and it's just talked about?
Honestly, I'm gonna say a trend, and the reason I'm saying this is because I've seen it in certain spaces. Yeah. But it's not even the full like space. Like, okay, when we talk about sports, there's like certain teams that now it's like, oh, we're gonna hop on this bandwagon of we're gonna care about emotions and we're gonna bring it in. But then most of them, not really. Or even like you think about the business world of everyone saying like, we want to build culture, we want to do this, but then
you gotta leave the feeling
you don't actually include it in there. Yeah. So setting based, I think that's what tells me it's a trend. Because, I agree. Yeah,
for sure. And I think it's one of those where like people talk about it, and like you said, in some settings where it's like, ooh, like here's a TikTok where everyone in the comments is like, yeah, this is me, I don't feel as alone. But then outside of that TikTok comment thread, like, you can't be a big feeler. Right. It also made me think about how our graduate program, I mean, you put, I don't remember how many of us there were, 20, 30?
Was there? Was there that many?
Probably less.
Yeah, I feel like
20 maybe?
We had a small number, maybe 20. Yeah.
I just remember thinking like you put all of these people in a room and again, all wanting to be therapists, and everyone in our cohort was a deep feeler. Yeah. It was a nightmare. And it also wasn't acceptable either because it was like we said, some days it was acceptable to show feeling, but other days it was like, oh no, if you show feeling, you are incorrect. Right. And like, that's not okay. So I think that like in idea, maybe it's somewhat accepted, but in actuality, like it's just not anymore. Or it's judged or it's seen as a weakness. Right.
Yeah. I think the same thing goes for therapy too, of like in the same vein of it's very much a trend, but also there's still that underlying biases of, oh, you go to therapy? Yeah. It's like, what's wrong?
When it's also like,
wait a minute.
When it's online and in social media, it's just sugar coated. It's like this, like, ooh, we're so quirky and fun because we feel things. Yeah. It's like the skits where like people would like poke at like a blonde who's like stumbling or forgetful. They're like, I'm just ditzy. It's like, no, like you don't do that. Yeah. And like this idea of like sensitivity being like sugar coated is this like fun little quirk, or like it's so cute. Like, hold on, like you gotta show some respect to how people feel and express that. So I agree with you. Yeah. It's a slippery slope.
Or the complete opposite of like it's not a fun thing, and it's like, oh, these people are dramatic.
They're too much.
They make issues all the time, and so
they're
that's
manipulative.
Yeah. And like today we're gonna kind of dive into all of that and talk about like the ways in which it shows up in the real world and how it's difficult. Yeah. A lot of people think like, oh, it's just feelings. Like, no, it's actually extremely hard.
It's not just feelings.
Yeah. But okay, so highly sensitive person, and really this term, it's relatively new but also not, because when I looked at what's written, like, what is it, Elaine Aron's research, 1990s.
Yeah.
So that was,
Like,
I mean,
oh yikes. I was gonna say that was like 10 years ago.
Yeah. No.
It's 30.
Right. Which is like 5 years before I was born.
Ooh.
But like it feels extremely like within the past 5 years, I would say, but it's been around for 30, which but anywho. But that she found that about 15 to 20% of the population.
I think that's baloney. I think it's a lot higher.
I would think so too.
I think it's a lot higher.
But I think the stigma around being a quote unquote highly sensitive person,
yes,
or actually I would say quote unquote being dramatic,
yes,
because that's what a lot of it's coined as, is that people don't want to be seen that way. So they're like, no, I'm not like that.
Right, because they're seen as like a Karen or as just like too much, or like if it's a man, they're just seen as like feminine or weak.
Yeah.
So that's a lot to unpack there. So I think that obviously, like Caroline said, like we'll touch on a lot of like what this looks like, also the cost of being highly sensitive, and really just kind of like the what now that we always like to kind of circle back to as well. Just because, I mean, this is the start of those conversations, yes, but we also realize that a lot of the people that are listening to this podcast are probably in this camp of people.
Yeah.
So just know that, like, before we get into it, like, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
At all. Like, I wish I could give these people like a hug all the time, because I wish I could have given myself that at one point.
Virtual hug. We are now bringing you in for an embrace if you enjoy them. If you don't enjoy them, that's understandable, and we will give you a
words of affirmation.
Yes. That we are here for you.
Absolutely.
Virtual hug.
Yes. So, okay, like the lived experiences of this highly sensitive person.
Yep.
What do you feel like is something that we can experience as being sensitive that people just like find surprising?
I think the biggest one is this idea of burnout. Because I think people...
I have the same thought.
Yeah. People assume that, oh, well, if, you know, you're always having feelings, then other people's feelings or your feelings, they're like natural and normal and feels like very everyday, feels very easy to manage, when in reality, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
It doesn't stop.
Yeah.
Unless you quite literally dissociate.
Yeah. Like, I'm constantly attuning to everyone else all the time.
Absolutely.
And sometimes overly when nothing's really going on. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, okay, that eye twitch looked a little interesting. I wonder what's going on there.
Right.
But then don't want to like call it out all the time, because who knows? And I want to make sure that I'm creating space for someone, but also want to maintain our relationship is important, and I want to make sure we're connected. So it's just this constant like exhaustion from decision making.
I have a really funny, like, unhinged, intrusive thought that just came to mind.
Yes.
So obviously, like, when we showed up to work today, we're both obviously like dressed in our normal like work attire. Yeah. I had the thought of like, oh my gosh, we're both kind of dressed like each other. Like, I'm wearing more of a you print and you're wearing more of a me print. And my immediate thought was like, is this codependency? And is this a negative thing? But of course, again, it's an intrusive thought. But again, it doesn't stop. I was like, huh. Because I was like, I would want that in my closet. And you could wear this as a shirt.
And I literally said, like, I would wear that, but it would have to be a shirt because my legs are too long. But I didn't even think about that.
Like, huh. Codependent? And immediately I was like, no,
we're good. That's hilarious.
The big feelers, they don't stop. And I think that what a lot of people don't realize too is that a lot of highly sensitive people don't like that about themselves. Yeah. And even though like in the media sometimes it's like, ooh, this is a cute, quirky thing. Most feelers hate it about themselves, and they find a lot of like shame and guilt in it. So it carries a very heavy weight for a lot.
Yeah. And in that same vein of like, there's a lot of misconceptions or there's a lot of ideas from others about what an HSP is doing or is feeling or how their response is. So like for you, has your like sensitivity ever like gotten mistaken for like attention seeking or manipulation?
All the time as a child, honestly. And this is something that like, and I feel like I can speak openly about it because like I've had conversations with my mom about it, but I just remember like as a child at one point deciding to hold back my feelings because it did feel like it was received as being dramatic or being too much. But at the same time, like, I think that's kind of a universal. I was also the second child. I have an older brother, and I have an older brother who's a very quiet feeler. So he wasn't very, like, outward in how he expressed. Also, he's an athlete. So, you know, he just brute force a lot of
dirt in it.
Yeah. But, like, my parents are really wonderful people. But I think just, like, being the younger child and then being a girl, being a sensitive girl, I do think that it was taken as just, like, oh, she just wants attention, or she's just being dramatic. Yeah, for sure. As a kid growing up all the time.
Yeah.
What about you?
See, I'm on the opposite.
Yeah.
I think I'm a no, mainly because I always shut down when I had lots of big feelings. One, I was an only child.
Yeah.
So I always had eyes on me. So I was like, okay, I have to be perfect all the time. And this was something that I put on myself. This was definitely not something my parents put on me. And growing up in athletics, of like, you break your finger or you have a cracked rib, and it's like, you just gotta breathe through it. So I kind of learned, like, okay, so we just don't do this. So I would have to essentially, like, dissociate and box it up and be like, okay, I'm not having feelings, we're good. And so I'd shut down, I'd get really quiet. And I think that's, people always said, like, you're a big thinker. That's how I was always described as a kid. Is she listens a lot and she thinks a lot. And it's like, yes, that's true. But that's because I was afraid to say what I was thinking and to say what I was feeling. So
that's like me as an adult now. I was a big, like, outward feeler as a kid, but as an adult, I'm a locked box, and I have a lot of feelings. It looks very quiet now.
Yeah. But it's just interesting.
It is.
And it shows that, like, an HSP, a highly sensitive person, we don't all have the same experience.
Right.
Of, like, what we do with these feelings.
It'll look different.
Yes. So if you're, like, you know, looking on Instagram and you're seeing all these people who are saying, like, I'm a highly sensitive person, I have big feelings,
like,
and it comes
crying
out
on
this
the
way.
internet.
Yes. Like, that does not necessarily mean that your feelings that you might be a highly sensitive person are invalid.
Sure.
Of, like, it's going to look differently.
So knowing that it'll be expressed differently, what do you feel like are a lot of these, like, core qualities or traits of this kind of person?
Definitely continuously, like, looking outward and inward of, okay, what's going on? I'm feeling something. Just constant, like, emotional processing.
Introspective.
Yes. And, like, not even just, like, recognizing a feeling, but wanting to understand the why.
Like, deepening it.
Yes. Of, like, deep emotional processing, really sitting in it.
Yeah.
Sensitivity to situations.
Yeah, the subtleties.
Yes.
You can pick up on it.
Yes.
Like, for me, people close to me are like, you notice everything. Like, I really do.
Yeah.
I don't even think about it, but I do.
Yeah. Or going up to someone being like, hey, are you okay?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, what do you mean? It's like, well, I noticed that, like, today, instead of putting your purse down in this one spot, you put it down in this other spot.
Yeah.
And you look a little bit more frazzled. And then they're like, yeah, actually, I did have a hard day. So, yeah, if you have conversations like that, then probably. And then the biggest one, I think, is overstimulation.
Which, you know, we just talked about it.
We
recently.
did. Of, like, okay, you come in after a long day of work, the TV's on, the dogs are barking, someone's trying to have a conversation with you, you've got 4 text messages on your phone, and you're just like, this is way too much. I've got to close a tab.
That sounds like your life, honestly. That flowed way too easily.
That actually was my yesterday, to the point where I was like, I don't have it in me to do my notes because I'm done for the day.
It's fine. We work for ourselves. It's okay. It'll get done.
Exactly. It'll happen. It'll get done. But definitely overstimulated.
And they're often in helping professions. I think a lot of those highly sensitive people, a lot of the time, they become helpers. So obviously, therapists, healthcare providers, doctors, nurses, teachers. Oh gosh, even things like first responders too. Or they go the exact opposite route so that they don't have to
no
feel
feelings
all
ever
the time. And I do think that sometimes, like, a highly sensitive person might get their, like, feedback of, well, you notice that I'm feeling something before I do. Like, I've gotten that from my spouse a lot. Is like, I'll notice if he's experiencing an emotion typically before he does, just because I notice all the subtleties. Like, my mom notices that in me too. I can't hide from that woman.
Little mama.
Love her to death. She's
love
the best.
And I think that, okay, let's talk about teachers,
Yeah.
mainly elementary school teachers. So we talk about like the childhood experience for a highly sensitive person.
Yep.
Both of us have worked in the school system. We have
Yeah.
both seen lots of children,
All the children.
both in counseling spaces, which like if a child's coming to counseling, we're obviously talking
We're chatting to people.
legit about emotions all day.
Yeah.
But in the school setting, they've done a much better job. Well, some school systems have done a much better job of including social emotional learning,
Right.
the SEL and all of that. But when we were in school,
No.
that was not included.
No.
So like, what are some of the things that either you notice as a teacher or just in your own childhood experience of like, what did that sound like?
As a kid and as like a school employee too, I remember this. Staff was mean.
Yeah.
Like it was like oddly petty. And it's so odd. And like, obviously, like I was a certified elementary school teacher. And like, I trained in the US and abroad in this like early elementary age range. And I just remember like as a student, as a kid, I remember like all the teachers would always be like gossiping and talking. And there's always some kind of drama going on with the teachers.
Yep.
But on the staff end, as I got older, I realized that like even in like the best situations where it was a great team environment, awesome admin, all the teachers were just such big feelers that there was always something happening, and it was always like a pretty like earth-shattering something. So I always felt like my nervous system was never quite regulated.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, I did middle school teaching, which that was just
You did it.
a wild experience. Not only of managing, the inner workings of that, because it does feel like you're in middle school. Like all of us are adults, but we're dealing with middle school feelings, relationships, all the things. So you almost essentially take that on. So there was a little bit of that. But even just like when I look at the kids and what that was like and I had the ability to be like a co-teacher, and I had amazing teachers with me that did a phenomenal job of like, we in a school system look at highly sensitive people as over dramatic, problem creators. They're the problem child. They're constantly like causing conflict,
like
or the attention seeker. Yeah, like all of those things of like, okay, you gotta like suck it up essentially. And even when I was a school counselor, we get like 10 minutes. Like 10 minutes to the kid comes in, manage, send them back.
Right. Put the Band-Aid on it and see you later.
And, as I was in that setting and in that situation, it tugged on myself and my co-counselor on both of our hearts of like, we need more than 10 minutes.
Right.
Like we're just completely shutting these kids down when they're having a difficult moment. And thankfully my school was phenomenal with, they were like, I know it's 10 minutes, but like if something's going on, like regulate, like we'll figure it out. We even gave some mental health days sometimes. We're just like, okay, today's just not the day. Let's do a mental health day. But I would say probably a large amount of time, it's very much like, okay, let's do this like distraction technique. We gotta push through it. We gotta figure it out because you gotta get back to class and you gotta go learn.
It's always like this child is disruptive, but then like behind closed doors it'd be like, well, they have something going on at home. Which like may or may not be true, but it was just this like taboo. All of a sudden there's a big feeler, and now they're being whispered about behind closed doors and a not so positive connotation. So okay, expanding on that, this idea of like early childhood experiences, what could be happening? Because obviously so many of these kids feel like they're too much or they're being dramatic. Does that necessarily mean that there's something big going on at home?
No.
I say I don't think so.
I don't think so
at
either.
all.
Like we're all made differently. We all feel differently. Like the whole point of feelers is that you have more empathy. You have this ability to like connect with others. And I want to correct that. Not more, but you're just more attuned to your empathy, I would say. Of like, we feel it deeper. I wouldn't say we have more of it. It just feels differently.
When I think it's hard because I feel like highly sensitive people are born and created. So we have like the born sensitive folks who it's just how they operate. Nothing groundbreaking is happening at home. They're just a deeper feeler.
Nature.
Yes. But then they're also created. We got our nurture friends.
Nurture. Yeah.
I do think that a lot of children who then become adults who are raised by emotionally immature parents, really unstable households, where their sensitivities are dismissed. I think a lot of that does create this highly sensitive person just because it's born in trauma and hypervigilance.
Yeah.
So it's hard to know because there's just so many ways this could come to be, and some of it's in our control, but a lot of it's not.
Yeah.
So that's like, why are we blaming ourselves when this is just how we are? Like you say, it's not positive, it's not negative, it just is.
Yeah, totally. Now we childhood. There's that. Let's talk about moving up, teenage years,
Oh
high
my
school,
gosh.
adulthood.
Puberty with highly sensitive feelings. What a ride.
Yeah, what a ride. And I love parents come in, they'll be like, it just feels like a switch, and they're
It
like
is.
12 or 13.
Yeah,
I'm like,
it
yeah, that's happening.
Yep.
And they're like, well, I see other kids going through puberty and it's not the same way. I said, yeah, it can vary. It can vary.
They just look different.
Yeah. But even like, okay, so let's talk adulthood of what does it look like for a highly sensitive person, of the dark side of things?
Sure. Ooh, I think that honestly, a lot of highly sensitive people are more susceptible to abuse and to become in a situation where they are taken advantage of.
Yeah.
To a lesser degree, but potentially abused at a more severe degree. It's also just like vulnerability as adults. It's just not acceptable in certain situations. So I think there's a lot of that. And there's also just like always questioning yourself. There's just so much self-doubt. And your self-concept is just constantly changing too. What do you think?
Definitely with the abuse moments of like gaslighting, manipulation, as well as like this fear of, okay, if I say this, if I give that vulnerability, if I let that wall down, of like, how's that going to be used?
Yes.
Because I think in adulthood, and this is a protective factor, of course, but we're all trying to figure out how to use things for our benefit to protect ourselves and to like help ourselves succeed. And that can be scary,
right?
Especially when it's not used appropriately.
Yes,
and so when like highly sensitive people are very vulnerable and it's not to a person that, accepted that with love and was using it in an appropriate way, like it can be used against them, which then creates that cycle of, okay, well, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. Well, and I think that like, especially in relationships as an adult,
Yeah.
because obviously, okay, like imagine like you have a highly sensitive person and one that's not in a relationship with each other. There's often this dialogue of, well, can we just leave feelings out of it?
Yeah.
No. Like respectfully, no. And actually the way I talk to clients about it is like your sensitivity is like adding salt as a seasoning to a dish. Salt as a flavor brings about other flavors in a dish. Yeah. It is a beautiful amplifier and it helps create all like the context and the nuances in food.
Watermelon. Try it on watermelon.
There we go. I got my little watermelon drink too. But I think and that's kind of how I like to talk to even like my more analytical folks who have a highly sensitive partner. I'm like, hey, their feeling is just adding extra seasoning and it's like bringing out the nuance and the context of this situation.
Right.
And a lot of folks have that friction or tension in relationships with one highly sensitive person and one not, because they see the other side as just too much or too little. And it's a really tough balance. But then you have, if two highly sensitive people are together, that can just become so overstimulating so fast.
And like when you look at the highly sensitive person and not as big of a feeler, it can be very much like, oh, this person's like weak.
Yes.
They can't manage their emotions.
Or they're immature.
Yeah, they're immature.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's not weakness. It's literally vulnerability.
Right. It doesn't mean that you're fragile. It also doesn't necessarily mean that you're introverted either.
Yeah.
You could just literally be shut down. And so I think like for some people, if they know that they have a partner who's highly sensitive and they're like, why are they a little bit more introverted right now? It's like, well,
they're shutting down because they're not being validated in their feelings.
Or they don't feel safe expressing what's going on in their head.
Right.
And I think that like if you are with a highly sensitive person, absolutely, you are going to have to do a few more things to create a safe space for them. But again, like you choose who you're with. And when you do have that safe space, again, like if we want to take it back to like the food example with salt and seasoning, like that just means that you have an abundance of flavor and nuance, and your partner will see all of these wonderful things that you're doing. They will be able to pick up on things, and you will be able to see things in just a more comprehensive approach that just adds all the layers of context, which if you're not used to it, it's very overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it can be a big game changer along the line.
Totally. Might even help us along the way
Yeah.
as the non-feeling, non-highly sensitive person of like more connecting deeply with our feelings and understanding things that are going on, creating insight in our life, which actually helps with decision making.
It does.
Just throwing that out there.
Saying even from like a neuroscience lens, like your mirror neurons are a lot more active. Like you have a stronger reaction with your amygdala. Like your brain is just firing in a different way. Again, it's not a bad thing. It's not a negative thing. It's just, it's different. And it runs hotter and it runs faster.
Yeah.
But it comes with a price.
Yes, but it does. So emotional labor overload.
Oh yeah.
Relationships, friendships, workspaces and places,
everything,
community, spirituality, all the things. It feels like that, and then a couple extra layers because you're looking at all the nuances and the things that are up under it.
It was funny. I was I work with like trauma informed design for spaces and things like that. And I actually really love like this TAD framework because it includes emotional safety in workspaces, not just for like clients, but employees as well. And I work with like all sorts of professionals here. So it's not just like private practices. Like we talk about like corporate offices. We talk about like accounting firms. Like
you did like a dentist or a dental office, right? Yeah.
And we talk about like what it's like to create emotional safety in spaces. And honestly, I just think of like mental health group practices.
Yeah.
And like I remember a practice that I worked at, and there was a group room where like staff would just go hang out when they had breaks. No one was ever there because it was like, well, if I go there and no one's there, I'm going to be rejected. Aww. Or I'm going to be overstimulated, or I'm just going to be watched by management and I'm going to be, judged, and this is going to be used as leverage later. So it's again, it's being a highly sensitive person, helping profession with more highly sensitive people. It's just overload. And think about like, these are therapists who are not with clients going through this like mental gymnastics too. Whew, it's exhausting.
And also looking at, if you guys have seen the TikToks where it's like, okay, I'm a counselor and I have 5 minutes to go to the bathroom, eat a bite out of my Nutri-Grain bar, and get ready for my next session. Like, y'all, that's true.
So
like, I know we talked about how I had a nap today or this week, but that's only if you have a large block of time, because typically you see people back to back. Like, I know after that nap, I then had 4 people where I got 5 minutes in between each of them of like, you have a very short amount of time to regulate before your next person.
Correct.
So as like a counselor, having a space where you can go and just kind of decompress, that's not the bathroom, or
that's so
or like your own office where you're actually working and sitting in all those feelings, that's so important.
Well, I think it brings up, I know we mentioned it a little bit earlier, but compassion fatigue.
Yeah.
And it's actually interesting because I know that I've talked with a few of my clients who are in helping professions, and I bring up compassion fatigue, and they don't usually know what that is.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do you go through this? And in my teaching degrees, like they never talked about compassion fatigue.
We gotta do trainings on these,
like,
you guys.
We need to do better.
Yeah.
So, okay, if we can break down compassion fatigue, what is it?
So essentially the way that I process compassion fatigue is I am not taking on others' emotions for them, but instead like I'm experiencing them with them to the point where I have my emotions, I have their emotions that I'm experiencing, and now I'm feeling like my emotions are too much.
Yeah.
Like I don't have anything within me to be able to continuously feel. And essentially it's like burnout, but not just physical or mental, but emotional burnout.
Yeah, it's like a specific flavor of burnout.
Yes.
It's horrible.
And I know for me, when I start to feel compassion fatigue, I start hearing in my mind like, okay, Caroline, you just got to get over this.
Yeah.
And I know whenever I'm telling myself to get over things, I'm like, ooh, okay, we're hitting compassion fatigue.
Absolutely. And it's like truly like, again, like you said, like you're absorbing so many things of other people. You're getting burnt out on other people's lives.
Yeah.
Which again, I think for us specifically, did they talk about compassion fatigue in our program?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they did.
I don't remember.
And we talked about it at Treehouse. I know that for sure.
I remember that.
Yeah.
And I even had like a compassion fatigue workbook here in our office, and there's like assessments, and I always check in with those assessments every few months just for my own well-being.
Yeah.
But especially like a therapist, My goodness, if you're not checking in on your compassion fatigue or taking care of it, like we need to do better for ourselves because we deserve it. But it can happen in any role. You don't have to be in a helping profession. You could just be a big feeler, and you could also be really extroverted. You could love to be around people, but because of that combination, you're constantly feeling like you're depleting your energy, and you're just feeling that drain and that depletion and that just like emptiness.
Yeah. And so it might be that like you're feeling less energy, but it could also come out as like chronic stress. Yeah. Like feeling like, okay, I'm very overwhelmed, intestinal things, GI, like too much bathrooming or not enough bathrooming, not being able to sleep. I mean,
sleeping too
much, or just like sleeping and then not feeling actually rested, of like, it can have a physical toll on us, not just a mental and emotional one as well.
I know for me, like I almost get flu-like symptoms when I have like compassion fatigue. Like I get like the intense body aches, chills. I feel like I am 5 times my weight. It's just this heaviness. I actually usually feel it physically before I feel it mentally and emotionally. I think a lot of therapists are like that because we're taught to compartmentalize
our own feelings,
everything.
But
there, I know we've mentioned it a little bit too, is like there's such a big link to trauma as well. Of you have to be aware of everything going on around you and with other people to keep yourself safe. And so often that hypervigilance in trauma will lead to compassion fatigue and to burnout. And that just gets so hard because then you have to feel like you choose, do I help my trauma responses or do I help my burnout? Obviously, if you work with a therapist who is trauma informed in these things, they'll be able to find a good mix for you so that you can attend both. But for a lot of folks, it does feel like they have to choose. And that's a horrible decision. And you do feel like you're compromising yourself too.
Yeah. And, you know, with that, if we're constantly attuning to ourselves, we're constantly attuning to everyone else and wanting to manage both of those. So like wanting to help out our relationships as well as ourselves and how they're interacting. That can cause a lot of guilt and a lot of shame and a lot of comparison, which then brings on what the people sitting on this couch feel extremely well, which is people pleasing, perfectionism, and then sometimes like avoidance of like if we are constantly analyzing situations, and I'll throw this out here because we're in Georgia, of course, we're in the South, the Bible Belt,
we are,
and there's a lot of judgment. There's a lot of expectation. And then especially with like people of color, there's constant expectation of the way that we're supposed to, quote unquote, respond, the way we should, quote unquote, look, act, all of these things with like microaggressions, macroaggressions. So we're checking in with those constantly. And there's this idea of like, I cannot step out of my home without putting on exactly what I need to be putting on, not only for myself and my own protection, but for other people too, to make them feel comfortable.
You see like the stigma of like the aggressive black man or the angry black woman all the time. But at the same time, like if we were to show up and be angry in public, no one would think anything. Actually, people might even offer us help, which just says so much. Well, and also this idea of, I think especially where we are geographically and also with our age range too, feelings are not only encouraged, but they're almost required. But not too much, because I think of folks don't want to see a lot of women like us not feeling, because then we're seen as cold.
Right.
Or words that I can't say.
The B word.
Without us having to change our Spotify settings.
Yes.
We see that, but then if we're actively feeling, they're like, oh, you're so nurturing. You're so maternal. Like, you must be a wonderful wife, mother, homemaker.
Specific feelings. You're allowed to have specific types of feelings.
So if you're like crying that a baby bird fell out of its nest on your porch, my goodness, she's gonna make a great mother.
Yeah.
But if you're crying at Publix because the week was just stressful, no, she's unhinged, and like she needs to rein it in.
Yeah.
That is the world we live in, people. But I think that like it's okay if we're frustrated and we're getting burnt out, because again, like we are all very intersectional people, and how we feel and express our emotions will be perceived differently. And I think that just shows that like we have to start within ourselves, but also acknowledge these different systems at place too.
Yeah, for sure. And it's also important to like manage that. Okay, when we look at the mental health space, highly sensitive people, we are more prone to feelings of anxiety, to feelings of depression. feelings of chronic stress, all of these things that affect like our cortisol levels, which of course manage the way we handle stress and our nervous system and all the things. But if like we're doing the things that we need to be doing for ourselves, we're in therapy, we're able to like bring in those feelings, understand those feelings, process them, and manage, then we're actually slaying life and thriving more than average, because that brings on a whole other side of life that we're able to tap into.
Absolutely. So do you feel like being more like sensitive has made you stay in situations longer than you should have?
Yes.
I literally wrote LOL yes.
I literally put yes, underlined it, an exclamation point.
I also thought of a specific name in my life, which I'm not going to say, but you know.
I too.
Yeah.
Thought of a specific name in my life.
I'm sure you did.
And it goes back to what we talked about earlier of like, I was very easily manipulated because of my own desire to like give and to care for others well. Yep. And that was very easily taken and said like, well, this is just bad for me and this is because of you. And when I was, thankfully we hit a moment where we got out of this, I want to say fog that we were in, the fog of not recognizing the situation. But when I was in the fog, like I was like, yeah, you're totally right. This is me.
Yeah, it's your fault.
I need to work better on this. Like I am being too much. I'm having too many big feelings. Like I am being dramatic. Yep. I should like figure it out and do more for you so that you feel more comfortable, when in reality that was not the case. Sure. And it was textbook gaslighting. But because of like my heart and what I wanted to do for others, I was like, okay, yeah, no, I'll make that adaptation.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say the same thing for you too.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely stayed in a situation way longer than I should have because the thought of doing something else was like I'd failed. And just because of the different influences around me and my own pressure on myself, and also because of what I was being told, that like this person's downfall would have been on my hands.
It's a responsibility.
Yes. So it was definitely a challenge because like after I did remove myself from the situation, this person did have a significant downfall. It might still actually be there. I don't know. That is not mine to carry. But that is something that I had to look at myself one day and say, this isn't yours anymore. Yeah. It never was, but it's not now. Right. So it could definitely make you stay in things. Yeah. And it also makes you value trust differently too. I think a lot of highly sensitive people, trust is hard to earn and even harder to earn back when it's fractured.
Yeah, I've heard myself actually saying this a lot this week of like managing my own yard and was speaking with other clients and like, that's your yard. Yeah. They have their yard. We have our yard. That's our emotional yard. But like, okay. So there's a lot of things that can happen.
That it is.
In a highly sensitive person's world and life. And it's tough. But at the same point,
it's such a great superpower.
Oh my gosh, you guys. Let's talk about the positives.
You're amazing.
Yes.
You're amazing.
Honestly, amazing. So like, I actually have this a specific client. And we were talking about this one time in a relationship. And I said, do you realize like that's a strength? Yeah. And she's like, wait, what? And I said, yes. I said, it's a huge strength to be able to like understand different perspectives, to be sensitive to situations, to be able to have empathy and depth with what's going on, even like creativity about what's happening in your relationship. I said, like, that's a huge strength. And it was like a light bulb moment for her of like, oh yeah, I guess it is. Yeah. So like highly sensitive people, you guys, we are very in tune and checked in to what's going on around us. And like there are times where it is overwhelming and it's a lot, but it also makes us amazing people to be friends with, to be working with, in a family with. Anything. I mean, all of that, because we have the ability to have so much empathy.
Yeah. Well, and I think about some of my like own like personal connections to highly sensitive people, and those are some of the safest spaces I've ever had. Yeah. Like I even remember like I even texted my sister-in-law like a screenshot of like the top of this episode, and I was like, we're recording this week. I can't wait to like give power to the little people. And she was so excited. But it's one of those where like when you're connecting with a highly sensitive person and you know that it's mutually balanced, you know that you're walking into something and you won't feel like you're too much. Yeah. And that is such a beautiful feeling. I mean, it's truly like a weight has been lifted off of you.
Yeah.
And it's just such a great way to connect, and it's such a great way to eradicate shame. Like, I even remember one of my first conversations with my spouse when we were like dating. He mentioned that like he felt things a little bit deeper, and he felt things at just like a different level than his peers, and mentioned feeling like, oh, like, you know, that just makes me wonder like where I fit in and things like that. And like I had to check myself, and I was like, how is this man with this profile on this dating app a big thinker and a big feeler? Which like now, yeah, for sure.
Quick question. This is a side note.
Yeah.
I don't want to take you off topic.
Yeah.
Did he have a fish on his profile?
No.
Oh, okay.
Actually, wait, he may have, because
I could definitely see him holding a fish.
I could too. I actually had the same exact conversation with him. I think
Yeah.
it was a few years ago. Because I accidentally matched with him. Because the picture I saw of him, he was with Mia.
Yeah.
Mia's our golden retriever. She's 7 now, but she
A
was
beauty.
She was 2 when we
angel.
met. Oh, she's just the sweetest puppy. She's 7, but she's still a puppy. But I liked the photo. It was the top photo of his, of him and Mia. I didn't realize he was in the photo.
Yeah.
I literally saw a golden retriever, and I was like, yep,
Yes.
you get my like here, sir. But I think I asked him later, I was like, was there a fish? Because if there's a fish, I always say no. There actually may have been one.
Fish or a boar's head or
So
something.
you best believe I would have been like, this person, I never would. And that's my own bias coming out front and center. But I actually think there may have been a fish.
Okay, that was just a side quest that I had in my
know.
brain.
Again, I married someone who's not my type, but it happened and it worked. But like, it's one of those ideas that like we were able to connect in this way of like, we felt like we were such deep feelers and thinkers that we felt really lonely in that.
Yeah.
Often.
For sure. So when it comes to like boundaries, because that's super important for highly sensitive people.
Yeah.
You've said it in multiple episodes of like, we're not building a wall,
Yeah.
but instead we're putting like doors,
Windows.
windows, so that we have
Little
ways
peephole.
to we have ways to protect ourselves while also maintaining that we're not shutting ourselves off from others. So it's this decision of like knowing how much we personally can bring in, let in, and what kind of things that we're like, okay, I'm not privy to this right now.
Sure.
I can't show up into this relationship and give what I need to give, or I can't show up into this conversation and give what I need to give. And you know, we have a whole episode on boundaries if you want to check that one out in our Spotify and Apple and YouTube playlists
Everywhere.
for Couch Combos. About boundaries, but it's this idea that like boundaries are beneficial for both of us.
Absolutely.
Of we don't want to show up into a conversation where we're going to be short or where we're going to feel resentful for having it.
Yeah.
And so the ability to be like, hey, you know, like I love you so much and I care for you so much, but I just don't have this within me right now.
Absolutely. And I actually think about the conversations where I actually was brave enough to say that. And I remember it being received really well. Because I would be like, I only have so much to give. I only have so much gas in the tank. I'm going to do my best. And I always say like, I'm sorry if it doesn't feel like enough, but this is truly what I can give. And it's funny. A lot of my friends are like, yo, you at 50% is like a normal person at 95%, which I do appreciate, whether or not that's true. But I know that it's always received really well. And it also makes people feel like they can be just as honest in return, which I really love.
100%. Like giving vulnerability will get vulnerability of like, oh wow, okay, they're saying that they're not in a space where this is something that they can take on right now. Now I know that when I'm in a space where I can't take on something, I can say that same thing to them because they'll respect that. Hopefully.
Well, and I think that also like this brings up like, if we know that we are highly sensitive people, we have to build self-trust. And I think that is one of the hardest things, because if I have a client who doesn't like to attach that label of themselves, what we usually land on instead is a chameleon. It's like, you are the ultimate chameleon. You feed off of the energy around you, the people around you, to define how you can show up in this space safely. But that also just means that we don't trust ourselves. We need that external validation to figure out where we're at. And so this idea of building self-trust so that you know you are enough, even when others just don't get it. And that is so hard. But I do think that a lot of that starts with like self-talk and giving yourself those safe spaces, and also just giving yourself time in your own head without offering judgment to it.
And safe spaces, emotional and physical safe spaces.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking about even me today, like I walked into the office, I'm wearing this dress if you're watching on YouTube. And, I don't know, I felt like uncomfortable. I was cold. And so I have a backup sweatshirt in my office for times where I'm like, okay, I'm uncomfy.
I have that, like, I have a giant blanket. It's literally meant for a full-size bed.
Yeah.
Because I can just, like, wrap myself up like a burrito.
And that can be so helpful to just be like, okay, my body needs this right now.
Yep.
I need to be able to regulate myself before we do a podcast where we talk for an hour, which I hate doing. Not that I hate the podcast, but just talking in general.
Talking's hard.
Yeah, talking is hard. So it's like being able to be proactive and cognizant of what you need when you need it and giving yourself that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, as a human being,
Yes.
how do you protect your sensitivity in your life to obviously prevent, like, burnout, but just, like, for sustainability?
Yeah. So, like I said, I like to remind myself we are all in charge of our own emotional yards.
Yeah.
Of like, my emotions are mine, other people's are theirs. And being able to disconnect from that and saying like, okay, I have this feeling that I am causing this, I'm creating this, but I know that like 95% of what's going on with other people is because of the things that are happening in their life.
Yeah.
And not because of me. Because I know that's just me personally, that's my biggest thing is like, it's because of me. I'm doing something.
Yeah.
And, I'm very attuned to it. And I'm like, okay, how can I fix it? How can I help? And so being able to disconnect from that and say, no, one, that builds autonomy for them. And it shows that like I'm supporting them without trying to quote unquote fix them because I don't want to fix anyone. I just want to support. Yeah. So being able to disconnect from that of like, it's my fault. I have to fix it.
Yeah.
And instead looking at it as like, okay, if it is something that I've done, then I can be there to support and be there to listen, but also like it's theirs.
Absolutely.
So that's how I kind of manage that.
I like to take a little bit of a different approach. I like to pick and choose when I empathize versus sympathize with people in my personal life. And the day I decided I can pick and choose, I felt liberated. And when I actually like work with clients to process even like what that is, a lot of them feel similarly because I think that when you're a highly sensitive person, you again feel like you have to empathize with everybody. You don't. Even as a therapist, as a professional, you don't have to empathize with every single person about every single thing.
Yeah.
You can sit with them in an emotion without taking that on for yourself.
Yep.
And I think that's a really powerful dynamic. And in the words of Miss Taylor Swift this week on the New Heights podcast, treat your energy like a luxury item, and not everyone can afford it.
I love that.
See?
Okay, I'll take it. I'll accept it.
I just had to loop that one in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I definitely balance sympathy versus empathy a lot.
Yeah.
And when I first started doing that, I definitely felt like when I was sympathizing, I was being cold because I wasn't like full on empathizing.
Yeah.
But as I got used to it over time, like it just felt a lot more free and I didn't hit that compassion fatigue nearly as often anymore. So it felt really nice.
Yeah. Also, if you don't understand the difference between sympathy and empathy, or you're like, what does that even mean? There's a great YouTube video from Brene Brown where she talks about it, and there's like this little hole with like really cute characters. Go check that out.
Yeah, absolutely. Like sympathy is like you can witness a feeling and you're like watching it on the screen. Empathy is like you're in that feeling with them. So like if a client just had a death in the family and you're sympathizing, you'd say something like, I'm so sorry for your loss. But if you're empathizing, you'd say, I remember feeling this emotion and I remember the depths of it and I remember how debilitating it was. Yeah. Again, just very different kind of energy that you give, both very authentic and genuine, just different levels. So I think just balancing those in your own unique way is a great way to protect that sensitivity.
Okay, so if you could go back to your younger self, highly sensitive person, what would you tell them or do?
I would probably ask her to not quiet down. Yeah, because I think that's like something just as an adult, I'm just still quiet. And the times where I'm like feeling the most is when I'm most quiet.
Yeah.
So I probably let her know, like, please don't quiet down. Please don't shut down. Please use your voice. It's going to look different no matter what you're going through. But your voice deserves to be heard.
Yeah.
What about you?
I'd probably be on the same vein.
Yeah.
But also taking off that judgment. So probably something like,
you're not too much.
Yes. Of like, it's not all on you. Like, this is not just because you're different or you're wrong or you're extra. And that if you do like speak up and say what's going on and be vulnerable, that there's gonna be people there for you. Because I felt very lonely.
Yeah.
It's extremely lonely to just like be in your head all the time.
Absolutely.
And so the ability to like step out of that and recognize like, okay, there is community around this. You're not alone. You don't have to force yourself into isolation.
Yeah, you don't have to feel this way by yourself. That is one of the biggest things.
Yeah.
Always. So taking things away and kind of leaving people with some nuggets to kind of walk away with. Just remember that like sensitivity isn't something that you have to fix. It doesn't mean you have extra baggage. Nothing like that, because I feel like sometimes when we launch into this topic, it can be really overwhelming. Like a lot of the topics we've really talked about too. It's really not something to fix. Again, like it's powerful. It's adding seasoning to your life. It brings out beautiful nuance and dynamic and context that others might not have access to.
Yeah. It's not a flaw.
No, not at all.
Of like, it's just a different way of looking at situations, relationships, circumstance. It's a perspective.
Yeah.
And the ability to engage in that gives us so much of an upper edge when it comes to like maintaining empathy in relationships and understanding like, okay, if we have a partner or a friend or a family member and we're noticing some changes, like that's amazing to be able to sit and be like, hey, are you good? Yeah. And they don't have to tell us, right? Yeah. Because their own feelings are their own feelings. And sometimes we're not in a vulnerable state. Yeah. But even just having someone ask can be so helpful, because it's like, okay, I've been seen. Even though I don't want to say what's going on, someone sees that something's happening.
Oh, absolutely. I actually had something happen similar to that. We recorded a podcast the day after I had a terrifying medical appointment. Yeah. And I thought I masked it pretty well on video. Yeah. You knew something was weird. And I mentioned that I was kind of off. Yeah. But again, I didn't think anything of it. Someone saw a clip of it on social media and reached out and was like, are you okay? Again, literally no one else noticed. Yeah. But this person that I don't regularly talk to was like, are you all right? I just want to check in. And even that, I was like, oh, wow. Yeah. So nice.
And it's so helpful for the heart. It's like, okay.
You're not alone.
Yeah. Like, you're important. Yeah. Like, if I'm going to say, it's like essentially saying like, hey, you're important and I'm seeing you. I'm noticing what's going on. So a few reflective prompts for you guys. Just if you're sitting here and you're thinking, okay, how do I analyze this? How do I know if this is me? I'll know. I've seen on TikTok or Instagram these things. Oh, I'm reading the descriptions, but just like checking in with ourselves of like, what spaces in your life allow your sensitivity to thrive? Of like, okay, where do I feel comfortable? Yeah. What does this look like? If I, let's say I have identified I am a highly sensitive person from this podcast. Awesome. Great. Check out our next ones and go back and listen to the other ones. But like moving forward with that, what helps us feel like we can thrive with that? Yep. Absolutely. That might be people, spaces, articles of clothing. It might be snacks.
It could be sensory related easily. Yeah. And just like those ideas of like, where are you most likely to hide or mute your feelings? And just be aware of that. Find whatever balance works best for you. It will be a balance. Tapping in and tapping out of our feelings will always be a delicate dance that we make. Yeah. Just kind of asking yourself those questions.
Some check-in moments.
Absolutely. Whew, that was a good one. I like that.
That was a good one. I've been checking our time, and she gonna be a long one. That's because it's so important.
It is. But as always, Couch Convos is not a substitution for therapy. If you would like therapy, and if you'd like therapy with us, check us out at www.soulhavengeorgia, that's Georgia spelled out, .com, or find us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, at Soul Haven Counseling, at Couch Combos the Pod.
Yeah. And I'm obviously going to ask if this is okay before we post it, but we have super exciting news. Yes. We are bringing on a new counselor. So if you're like, I'm tired of listening to Sarah and Caroline, which hopefully not, because we love you guys. We actually have another Sarah coming into the office.
And she's
got
amazing.
2 Sarahs, so we're Sarah sandwiching.
We are.
But she is phenomenal. She is coming onto the crew, the Soul Haven crew. So we're excited to welcome her.
Yes.
So if you want to like check out what she's got to offer as well, then hit up our website.
Absolutely.
All right.
And if you are in immediate danger, you are in crisis, definitely call 911, 988, go to your closest emergency room and seek out those emergency services that you very well deserve.
Awesome. Until then, love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.